we are doing freedom, happiness, and wisdom. So we are understanding and doing the practice based on Yoga Sutra with support of the Gita, one of the beautiful texts, and also other text to support and understand deeply what exactly is this Yoga Sutra. So, in the very first session, always remember there is a natural state that is a meditative state. So, where no thought, no idea, no likes and dislikes is there, the mind is living constantly in a natural state 24 by 7. But then comes, I'm not living in a natural state, so what causes? So we understood the psychology of desires. And then in the third session, we understood, I think we understood, uh, if I remember, you are a listener, good listener, you are a speaker. So you start applying these sutras in your day to day life by speaking, by expressing in different situations. So when there is no speaker and listener, then you absorb into a meditative state. And the fourth one that we understood that during the day, when the mind falls into subconscious habitual routine, we recall these principles to live our life. So, in the last two sutras, we understood what exactly is the sutra, and we covered the first part of the sutra. So, the first part of the sutra that makes us clear that the popular notion of yoga is doing physical exercises, breathing, and etc. etc. But Vyasa, the commentator, says that yoga is the highest state of mindfulness. It is the highest state. What is the highest state? Is the natural state. So that I have covered in the first uh, talk in the practice. So now we also understood that this meditation, or we live in five subjective states of the mind. But before that, meditation is basically a movement. So, meditation is basically a movement. So, what is that movement? So, first movement, that mind is filled with mud of impurities. So, we have to rise above from reaction, wandering, hatred, dualities, etc., etc. So, second is I must fix the goal where I'm moving. I must have a departure point and I must have an arrival point. For that, we understand there are five subjective states of the mind. The mind is becoming crazy and the lazy and unnecessary. It moves into the likes and dislikes. And it has been happening for years and years and years, days after days. We are living into those likes and dislikes. Even with a person whom we love, we create those likes and dislikes. So there must be a departure point and arrival point in meditation. So, do we understand the departure point? Departure point is all likes and dislikes, reactions, dualities, conflicts that consist of the first three states of the mind. Huh? So, the meaning of the first sutra, if you see that, now the seeker is ready to enter into the highest state of mindfulness, but mindfulness takes place in where it takes place. It takes place in the mind. It is a state. So, but the mind lives in five subjective states. So the next question comes, what are those five subjective states where the mind lives? And which state leads me to meditation? Which state leads me to non meditative state? So it means, as a teacher, I'm not responsible. You are responsible for changing your mind. Not at all. I'm not at all. Even if you fight with me, I have no problem. Or you appreciate me, no problem. So now question comes. What are those five subjective states? The first subjective state is known as, in Sanskrit, it is known as chipta. There will be a great understanding in today's uh, practice in a talk. So the chipta means distracted mind, absent minded, craziness, claiming likes and dislikes as true. So, what I'm going to say now, many people start meditation aims at stopping the mind forever. You know, they want to stop the mind, they want a total emptiness. My mind should be empty completely. Empty mind is inert, it's a material. You see the wrong understanding, misunderstanding. So every subjective state is good and every subjective state is bad. That understanding we should have in our life. Now, take an example of a wandering mind. When it is good, pay attention. When it is good, you sit in your driver's seat of a car, you have the key or a push button. You see, the mind first jumped on an idea that I should drive a car. Then you sit on the driver's seat. Then you push the button, keyless start. Then you hold the steering. You see that the mind is jumping from one thing to the other. Then you put your foot on the pedal. You reverse the car or you start moving. You see it's a dynamic movement. The mind is constantly wandering, but it is wandering under your conscious control. So it is a good state of the mind. I have to use this. I'm speaking from one word to the second word to the sentence from from I'm expanding the topic. The mind is wandering, jumping from one topic to the other. But when it is under my conscious control, it is a good state of the mind. I have to use this. How can I make the mind totally empty? But if the mind is moving in an unorganized way, then it causes the chipta, the wandering state of the mind is very bad in that state. It does not pay attention and it causes lot of challenges in our life. Second state of the mind is known as mudha. So mudha literally means forgetfulness, laziness, habitual. Mudha also means foolish, infatuated, unwise, lacking good judgment, or lack of a common sense. A mad, the word mad is insane. When the mind is fully working on them, and a foolish knows, still makes a wrong judgment. He knows this is not good. To get angry because I want to get the things done from you is not good, and still I make a wrong judgment. Do you see that? We do it in different situations in our relationship with the strangers and a lot of other activities. So that is known as the second subjective state of the mind. A foolish talk a lot of nonsense. A mad is angry and a wicked. That is the difference between the two. Now see the beauty of this second state of the mind. It is the second state of the mind that helps us to get a sound sleep, steadiness of the body. You see that? So there is a finer line between when This subjective state of the mind is good, and that subjective state of the mind is bad. The third is known as obsessed. I normally say the first is crazy, second is lazy, third is obsessed. Where is that obsession? So my mind starts moving in alternating thoughts: good, bad, high, low, pain, pleasure. Uh, you had a pain last year and you retrieve that information and you start thinking it is not required. It is not required, but still you think of it. So that causes lot of pain. Now see another part of this obsession. Uh, So when I have a, say for example, passion for meditation, it is a good state. It is, even though that passion is an obsession for meditation, but I'm doing it consciously. Now you see that you have a passion of the sex, drugs, food, people, past. So it comes from the same state of the mind. So that is bad. So if I have a craziness and obsession for any object outside, that is the third state of the mind. So we have to first three states of the mind have positive aspect, have negative aspects. So if the mind moves into those negative aspects, just see that. Do you experience I have been living in pain and pleasure, likes and dislikes, and boredom and mind swings from here and there? It is because of these three states of the mind. I have to get rid of it. The problem is we have been living in these states and we find that the other is responsible for it. That is the greatest problem in our life. Now, coming to the fourth state of the mind. The fourth state of the mind is known as one pointedness, literally translated. But if we understand little deeply, the word ekagra means holding on to one pure thought to seek and search the truth of real self. One pointedness means here in yoga that the mind is holding on, say, for example, for peace and happiness, love and wisdom. My mind is constantly holding on to peace and happiness. What it means? You are appearing for a job interview, mind is holding on the peace and happiness. See that? Huh? You are talking to someone, mind is holding on the peace and happiness. You are eating something, mind is holding on to the peace and happiness. But in meditation, the mind is holding on to the thought of a real self. That real self is of the nature of permanent peace, happiness, love, and wisdom. Can you imagine that the mind is holding on to the thought of the real self, which is of the nature of peace and happiness, love, and wisdom 24 by 7? What is going to happen? Think of it. What will happen in your day to day life? But what happens if you are not a seeker? The first three states is working behind you, behind the mind, even if you are holding on the thought of a real self. So that is why we need an understanding, a clarity, and a regular practice. Now comes the fifth subjective state of the mind. Fifth subjective state of the mind is known as niruddha. Niruddha means ceased, dissolved, vanished, filled with nothingness. So that subjective state shines with the true nature. You see, in the very first sutra, the very first sutra means compressed formula, and we are expanding. So, after expansion, we realize that this great master Patanjali, in the very first sutra, lays the entire foundation of yoga. He summarized what exactly is meditation. Now, I believe you all are seekers, so we can give another expression. It means mindfulness is minimizing the first three subjective states and maximizing the stay of the last two subjective states. is what takes us to a meditation. Now, I was just explaining to the Stephen and David and Jerry, I am driving a car. The power of that car is the brake, pedal, and brake, pedal, and steering. If these three things are not in the car, I cannot have a conscious control over the car. Understood? So two things are there. My mind should be capable. It should have some powers. When the mind is wandering, I should take my mind back in meditation. Do you see that? Huh? So if I don't, if I my mind is not capable, if the mind is not possessing those powers, then we do not succeed in meditation. Or even if we say we succeed in meditation, you do meditation, you are absorbed into the meditative state for an hour, you return from it, and the mind takes over the same old habitual thoughts. You know, my mind, I don't realize that the mind has a break. I should give a break to the mind. Hold on, you're not going there. Say, for example, you have a certain thought of anguishness or reaction against a person, even in the family or outside. Now the mind is going there. It get obsessed. It is constantly thinking about it. The mind must have a power to stop this. If you don't have that capacity in the mind should be capable of this. And telling the mind consciously why you are thinking all those crazy stuff. If I don't have that power in the mind, we do not succeed in any meditation. Now see these crazy thoughts. The mind moves daily in these crazy steps, thousands of times every day. Do you realize that? The mind goes and it daydreams, that guy, and you have an anxiety and I must be able to stop this nonsense. My mind must be capable. That is why we are studying these five states of the mind. It is not for academic talk. Do you see that? Thousands of times mind goes. Like Sam was saying, I get, younger people goes for an interview and the anxiety. Why should I have anxiety fear? Why? I know what I'm capable of. So mind is holding on to the piece and then it appears on the interview. So why it is holding on? That ability should be there in the mind. This is what the master Patanjali is saying in the first sutra. Are you getting it? I should be able to give a break. That break is in my conscious control. So how do I know it? The mind lives in the first three states and I give a break. So what is going to happen? The mind will start living either in the fourth and the fifth subjective states, and that will help me in going deeper into the meditation. Are you getting it? I'll make the things very clear. There is nothing mysticism, cult, dogma, religion. uh, There is no guru who says, I will bless you and everything will happen. No, you have to do everything. I'm simply a pointer. I do nothing. I just speak. So I'm very happy that I just speak. I don't own any responsibility. On the other side, I'm 100% responsible that I'm teaching from the teachings of those great masters. The teacher is bound to teach in this tradition. Similarly, it's the same thing. Physics teacher is bound by the knowledge of the physics. You should not start teaching the biology in a physics class. So simple. So understand. So what is the takeaway from today's understanding? Is that I am aware 24 by 7. Now I can realize that mind is moving in the first three subjective states may cause the problem in the future. So let me give a break. Hold on. Mind is holding on to the real nature 24 by 7. And my mind understands that real nature is full of permanent peace and happiness. And that takes me to the success in meditation. So close your eyes. Let us start our journey. Close your eyes. So when you close your eyes, remember I am.